for your work. Now, as the session proceeds, we are now continuing our very first keynote of the day today, a question which every founder wants to answer. What makes an investor say yes? Having a great idea is only the beginning. Understanding what makes a startup fundable, scalable, and investment worthy is what can take that idea to the next level. To share her valuable insight and experience with us, we are honored to welcome Ms. Rehana Sheikh. Please give her a huge round of applause as we welcome Ms. Rehana on stage.
Hello. Assalamualaikum everyone, and a very good morning to all of you. And I'm very much delighted to be here today because whenever I see so many young entrepreneurs, innovators, investors, and startup founders, it always kind of makes me happy. Why? Because we all know that whenever we are going to build a startup, that is going to create opportunities for so many people to get, so many opportunities to do jobs. And ultimately, that contributes to the economy of every country. That's the reason that makes me, kind of inspired. So I'm sure today so many entrepreneurs are here, startup founders are here, and mentors are here. So I would like to make this presentation or this speech, perfect for the people who think that what can say for an investor to say yes whenever a founder or a startup, initiator comes and asks for the investment. So I'll start with a difficult question. I know so many of you are founders, even students, and young entrepreneurs. So apart from that, whatever your current situation or the scenario is, I'd like you to think of yourself as investors, right? You have $1 billion with you to invest. And if you think of yourself that you're an investor and you are going to invest to any startup, what is that one thing that is going to make you, able enough that you can trust the person or the founder that you are going to give them money? What comes to your mind? Anybody? Anyone? Yeah, please.
Solution to a problem.
Solution to a problem. Great. I saw another hand here. Great. Great. Absolutely. Yes, please. I'm sorry, come again? Character of the person. That means trust. Okay, great. In return, that means. Okay, great. Great insights, I would say. That means the audience is well prepared and aware as well. Somebody raise their hand as well? Anybody else? Profit? Sorry, come again? Profitability. Absolutely. Yes. Okay, that's great. So I want all of you to think like an investor before you go for a meeting, right? You're a founder, you're going to meet an investor for the investment, of course, he's not going to trust you otherwise until you are well prepared. You know that what is that one thing or what are those factors which can make him convinced enough that he would be willing or interested or able to trust you guys. Right? Okay, so as you all know that what makes investors say yes is our today's keynote speech. I would like to ask you today that stop pitching and start thinking like an investor. That is one important thing that should be in your mind, right? And as I elaborated, that you have $1 million with you and two investors come to you, right? They ask you for the investment. And the product is same, the market is same, and so many other things, like, all the situations are same, the opportunities are same. So what is going to be that one thing you are going to invest into one, invest with one person and not with the other? That is, of course, those things which you guys have just highlighted, right? So the investor is going to evaluate either he would be getting return on the investment that he is going to make, right? If he is going to be certain. Okay, one more thing. I would say that the investor cannot be certain. Why? Because we all know business is going to be uncertain. Startups are going to be uncertain, no matter what. So the decision is going to be under uncertainty, right? So as you can see, okay, so guys, if you want to take the, clicks of these slides, wherever you find, and wherever I will not be able to, elaborate much because of the shortage of time, you can take it and you can take benefit of that, right? Okay, so the investor's job is not to eliminate risk. As I mentioned earlier, you cannot, right? As an investor, you cannot. How come? I'm not even certain that I'm going to be sure about startup. Uncertainty is going to be there. So what he can do is, the investor is going to see the risk is worth taking. Right? He would make sure, as somebody said here, that if the risk is worth taking, only then he's going to invest into the, that startup. Otherwise, there's no way that he is going to trust with his money, right? This team has credible probability of creating significant value, right? If he is sure enough that this team is going to deliver, no matter what the market may crash, the economy may crash, but he is supposed to see if the team that he is going to trust is able enough to take the decision properly whenever there is need. They are not unsure that what if the markets crash? Because of course the uncertainty is going to be there for sure. Okay, now since we have seen this scenario, the investment of $1 million, and we have seen that, we are going to see what is going to be the evaluation of the investor. Okay, now I have put all these signals into 7 parts. That makes sure, kind of sure, not because, there's no guarantee that the founder or the investor are going to be, very much or 100% sure about the success of the business. Okay, so my 7 signals are, problem. Somebody mentioned it. What is the problem? And what is going to be the solution to that problem? How painful is the problem? You know, we all do have problems, but the investment is not going to be secure always until it is very much painful. It is very common. And he would be seeing so many other factors as well. Like, you know, what is going to be the solution at the moment for that? Why the customer would be moving towards you? What is his direct solution? Why would he be just coming only? Why not other, founders or other businesses? And then the second point is evidence. This problem's signal says that no one then investor that yes, this is business where I can think of investing. Why? Because the investor can expect from the founder. The investor can expect from the founder. And then how many customers are paying that? He's not going to just. A founder is coming to an investor and he'll be like, very excited. Because of course he has created an idea. And why not? He should be. Because of course the idea that, if I'm coming up with an idea, I'm sure the University of Lahore came with an idea that, we are going to make a conference kind of thing, or, this for the startups and for the young innovators. They were very excited that, oh, we have created this marvelous idea. But who is sure that this is going to be successful? And this happens. So investor is going to see what is the evidence of that. Until he is not seeing the evidence, he would not be getting that signal that, okay, yes, this is invested. So the evidence has to be there. Then economics. Investors want the numbers. You want to see how sure the founder is about the numbers. How much he's well prepared. What is going to be the investment, where the money is coming from, how is he going to use it, how is he going to evaluate that investment, like whatever the funds that he has, right? How often the customer is going to pay for that. It's going to be important. How long do they stay, the customers? Then what does it cost you to deliver the product or service? That means if that gives an indication to the investor by the founder, he is going to make a decision that yes, to some extent, yes, I'm investing into this business. Then comes momentum and clarity. The investor wants to see that there is going to be movement. There is going to be clarity. And when we talk about clarity, that is not the simplification of the thinking. It is actually the evidence that you have done the thinking. What does it mean? You have done your work. You have actually made the evaluation of the investment, of the risk, everything. If the plan fails, where do you stand? And one thing that does, because whenever we come up in the beginning with any plan, at the mid maybe of the execution, or till the end, the circumstances are not going to be the same. Those are going to get changed. So the investor would evaluate how well prepared you are. Then comes the next point. Investors are looking for execution. Execution is very important. Today in the morning, any one of you woke up and you just got an idea. Maybe you had a dream. Let's start a business. I've got this amazing idea. But is that sufficient enough? No. There has to be a planning for that. There has to be a team building for that. And there has to be execution. Execution is very important. Until it is there, how are you going to get the results? So that has to be there. I've written some of the points. If somebody would like to take the pick of that or text, you can take that. Or if you want me, I can elaborate it, but then again, the time is going to be short. So if you have built something with limited resources, right, that is something that is going to make the investor willing to invest into that. If you, okay, so we have this thing with biotechnology, will, go into the market. This is not the founder. You have to see what can I produce within resources. Do not wait. As we all say that, do not wait for the perfect moment. Because that never comes. You have to start with tiny steps. You have to start with small steps. So make sure you start not with the message, what you have, because that's actually your. That is going to create evidence for the investor to invest. But if you just, just have an idea, you woke up in the morning, you had an idea, and you just visit the investor and you tell them that, oh, I have this great idea, I want you to invest. The investor silently asks, why should I trust you with my money? And he's right. Would you trust? No, no one is going to. So make sure that you do not wait for the massive investments. Just start with the small things. Build a team, strong team. Then if you solve a difficult operational problems, only then you'll be able to convince or create an impact to the investor. Because of course, he wants to make sure that, yes, if I invest this money, this is really, you pivoted intelligently when the first model didn't work. As I said earlier, if your models are not going to work it, and of course, they always don't. So how smartly you have dealt with that? Right. Then investor would see the founder, how trustworthy the founder is. Because he does not know the business. He knows the product, he knows the problem when the founder is going to tell them. But is the founder really trustworthy? If he sees that yes, the trust is there, the founder knows his work, the founder has the risks, the customer, then he would get this confidence from the founder that yes, this is the place where I should invest. So this is another important signal.
क्या फर्स्ट
Okay, now
तुम अपना लिखो
these four things are very important for the founder. So all of you who are founders here,
पहले टोटल दिखाने का सारा कुछ
innovators, make sure that you are self-aware. Know your credibility. Are hide our weaknesses. Please
आगे
don't do
लिखो कि मैं
that.
कभी याद ही नहीं रहेगा क्या
In
है
fact, work on them.
100 का तो
Work on your abilities. And make sure
लिख
that
तो
you
लेकिन
build trust. Then coachability. How coachable the founder is. If something wrong happens, and there are there is going to be, is the founder going to take the risk or admit that okay, that's our fault? Or he becomes defensive. So make sure as a founder, you're coachable enough. Then, judgment. How good the founder is in judgment. How better he is in evaluating the good opportunity and distractions. The steps that he is going to take going forward, are those going to create better opportunities? But that is just, another distraction. Then accountability, our mistakes. We put it on the other people, on the circumstances. We would simply say, oh, the market crashed. That's what happened. That's not my fault. In the case, he should accept. His team should accept. So that generates trust on the investor. Right, and the last point is return potential. The investor is going to evaluate what
वो मैं
return he
लिखूंगी
is
बाकी
going to
वापस
get
कल खाई थी वो लिखो
if he is investing somewhere.
240 के बिस्किट वगैरह लेके आई थी
If this works, how big can this become? I mean, if he's investing somewhere in a business, in a startup, if this works, how big that opportunity can be, or how big that startup is going to be. So he's going to evaluate that. He's going to see that.
कल वाला
Because I've seen most of the startups work, they become successful, they generate revenue. But what the investor is actually going to get, investor is going to evaluate that. So the last line is that is this compelling investment opportunity or that's just
मैं अपना
going
लिखूंगी
to
तुम
be
लोग
a
लिखो
waste?
जो माइंड में करती है लिखी जो सारी होगी
Right.
फोर्थ
So we have seen yeses, all the yeses, and all the signals that are going to make our investors,
कोई भी चीज मिस ना हो ये लिखो फोर्स पे लिख
trustworthy or
लो
kind of trustable actually. That he's going to trust us and he's going to be willing that he's now committed to invest his money with us. Now we are going to see those. Those are almost opposites of what we have seen already. The problem
दो
isn't
दिन तो
painful
1500 ला
enough.
ले रेंट पे
That's not going to give motivation. Neither to the founder, if he's,
वो तो पास है
he's aware of himself.
बोलना है
Resources.
110 की
He is going to trust you that yes, limited
बोलना है
resources.
110 की
He is going to trust you that yes, this founder is very much focused,
110 के
create
वो भी
or
110
to
की
create milestones.
पानी भी 110 की
So the investor
यार
is
से
not
मुझे
going
तो
to
ये ज़्यादा कैसे बताया कि मैं भी हैरान हुई थी बिल्कुल ऐसी
evidences
कोई
that
जिंदगी
you're
नहीं थी
just
16 खा
creating
चले
stories. Then everything depends on the founder.
सोचो
The founder not trustworthy. The investor is not going to come with you.
इसका बैठा
He's
पे
going to trust with his money. The founder doesn't understand the risks.
टेम्पलिंग में चले गए थे टेम्पलिंग में
If
पानी
the
की
founder
बोतल
is
से
not
लेके
aware
गए
of the
थे
risks,
बाहर आके
then
मैं
of
कुछ
course
खाया था आइसक्रीम खाई
the
थी
investor
बाहर
is
से
going to, assess that. Of course, he's going to give you your money. I mean, his money. Then of course, the upside doesn't justify the risk.
हाँ
If the upside is not justified,
नहीं
then you
रेंट
can't
नहीं
convince
लिखो रेंट में
investor.
रखती हूँ
And you
रेंट तो
shouldn't
मुझे
be.
समझ लगी है सबकी
So he's simply
तुम
going to
लोगों की
say
अलग
no.
जमा करूँगी अपने अलग जमा करूँगी
Now,
ठीक है
you have taken listen to no from the investor. Still,
टेम्पल इन वाला था
you
हमारा
have an
आइसक्रीम खाई थी टाटा और
opportunity
इसने खाया था पानी की
to
बोतल
convert that
प्रोजेक्ट होती है प्रोजेक्ट का कोई
conversation
पैसे लगे हैं एल्फी ग्लू
successfully. How? If you ask questions, simply just accepting that, okay, the investor has said no, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to put in more efforts. You can ask an investor, what information would have changed your decisions? That's a powerful question. When you will be asking this,
हाँ
that would
स्केल के पैसे डाल दो
force the investor
तुम लोग भी
to
लेते हो
think, okay, let me share
चलो फिर
something
दोनों
with
को डाल
him,
दो
the insights. Okay, these are the reasons that I'm not going to, invest with you.
तुम लगाया
And that's
तुम्हारा
what
तो
the
घर में चला जाना मेरे वाले
founders
का डाल
are.
दो क्योंकि लिया लिया ही अपना लगाया
So
सेम
what
लगाते
if he did not invest with you this
पता नहीं
time?
कितने करते हैं 100 का
Maybe
तो
you
छोटे
choose
का
fine for the next one.
चल कोई नहीं ठीक है
So as long as you're leaving a good impact, you're giving a good impression.
ठीक
You're
है
asking powerful
100
questions,
क्या है
you're building trust, you're going to get investments. Right. The moment of self-reflection. Now, since you have seen all this, I want you to do a self-reflection.